What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is Dave Mellon with Valor Fire Training. We are joined tonight with Dave Pruitt. How's it going, Dave?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure to have you. For those of you that don't know Dave, he probably has the longest title in the history of titles in the fire service. What exactly is your title?
I'm Major David Pruitt, the Chief of Fire, EMS, and Special Operations.
Okay, which is a really, really big way of saying you're the chief.
Yeah, I'm the fire chief.
Okay.
I get blamed for 98% of what goes on.
Fair enough. So you are the fire chief down in Hillsboro, Texas, and Where is that?
We're 30 minutes north of Waco. There's two I-35s in Texas, east and west, where they touch an hour south of Dallas-Fort Worth. That is us. The north side is Denton and University of North Texas and all that. We're the south side. We're an hour south.
Very cool. So Dave is a member of our cadre with Valor Fire Training. You can catch him at almost every conference in the country. He travels around. I mean, you go places more than anybody I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I'll go to a conference and all of a sudden you'll be like, "Hey, man, I'm here." So it's really cool. I mean, you're definitely into the job. You're definitely into the training realm. And after talking to you for quite a while, kind of realized that we had similar trains of thought. So tonight we're going to be discussing NFPA 1403 and live fire in acquired structures. Just as a couple reminders, you guys can comment on Facebook or YouTube, and it will actually show up on our feed. And then we can put them up on the screen. So if you guys have questions while we're talking, or if you want to have, give feedback or input, please put that on there, and we'll put it up on the screen for everybody to see. But Dave, you have a niche, and I have heard you referred to as the Babe Ruth of acquired structure training. And so when I heard that, I was like, man, that is like so accurate. And you said you've never heard it.
Yeah, I've never. Yeah, you must be talking. I owe those people money if they're saying that kind of good stuff out there.
I was talking to somebody about like acquired structure live fire training, and they were like, "Yeah, Dave Pruitt, he's like the Babe Ruth of acquired structures." So it made me think of this.
Yeah. You keep telling me that. Who is she? What? The Sultan of Swat. The King of Crash. The Colossus of Clout. The Colossus of Clout. Babe Ruth! The Great Bambino!
So, I mean, it's kind of, it was funny, I just thought of that. And no matter who you are in the fire service, I mean, there are people that have never heard of someone. But the amount of people that I've heard of that know of you, and know of what you do is pretty amazing. So why don't you talk about that real quick and just kind of discuss how you view like live fire and acquired structures, and how you kind of incorporated it into your own area.
Oh, absolutely. So live fire for me, we don't have a fixed facility in our area. It's a 30-40 minute drive, a couple of $1,000 to get all the guys through. It's just not an option for us per se on even every couple of year basis. So we started looking from within. We have a fair amount of abandoned and unoccupied structures in our area. And so one thing led to another. We would get the normal ones that everybody gets, those last minute deals that's getting torn down Monday. If you want to go do anything, get in there, and we'd go bust walls, break doors, chop holes in roof, do the standard stuff that everybody seems to do. And I know we'll talk more about it. Live fire for me, though, especially in acquireds, it's that rare instance that we get to create the issue and in a realistic circumstance. The building's going to talk back to you. There's things that you have to consider that you don't have to consider in a fixed facility, whether it be a Class A or a Class B. And to be able to take your guys through that, your peers, your first due response district, take them through that. It can't be replicated any other way. It just can't. So I mean that's what it is to me, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think, when we talk about 1403, there are a lot of myths, there are a lot of misconceptions. There are people who feel like they have a pretty good grasp of 1403, but they really don't when it comes down to it. I have seen so much fear mongering revolving around 1403, whether it's an acquired structure or a building that people are using for training. That's an actual training facility. There are so many fears about these things, and so that was kind of why I wanted to have you on the show, and I wanted to pick this topic with you, is because you and I have had we've had those discussions for hours where we're like, okay, this is what happened at this training. People were freaking out because we wanted to put park bench that's made out of metal in a hallway. And they're like, oh, you can't do that because it's, it might catch on fire. It's metal. It's not going to burn. So,
you're hitting it right on the head. And people, this is one of the most misinterpreted, misquoted, standards out there. And I think you're absolutely right. It is based on, one, first and foremost, it is a great standard. It really is. I told you before the show started, I read through it again 3 times just in the last couple of days, just making sure I'm polished on certain things in preparation. I read through it 2 to 3 times before I do any burn. We want to do it right. But one of the biggest problems with the standard, you have to pay to get it. If you do find a free version of it, is it the right year edition? Is it the right edition? Is it some bastardized version that somebody has typed in because everything's true on the internet. And so coming across the actual version, it's very straightforward. It's a very realistic approach. And a lot of the things that people ascribe to it is exactly what you said. It's fear mongering. You can't do this. Well, you can't put real furniture in there. Okay, it doesn't say that anywhere. It discusses burn packages. It discusses being knowledgeable. And I think if people had a clear understanding of 1001 and all the other NFPA standards it references, no, just don't go out there because it's Saturday morning and you got 12 guys, you got nothing better to do. Let's go burn down Old Man Smith's farmhouse,
right?
And not put any thought into it past that. And it literally is one of those standards, as we discussed, that's written in blood. There have been both students and participants, instructors that have lost their lives that never approached that training thinking that was going to happen. And so to read those stories and those takeaways, those after actions, you got to look at those things and go, okay, yeah, we would never want to block an exit door. We would never want to impede somebody's progress in or out of the building. Those that are using flammable liquids, come on. Right. I mean, I don't know what you're wanting to gain out of that.
And I think a lot too, in my experience, the dicey situations that I've been in when doing acquired structure burns, they usually came from, and I know that this sounds bad, it's not always this way, but they came from good intentions.
Oh, yeah.
They want to create realistic fire conditions. They want to create that fire rolling down the hallway. So they're taking I won't tell you where I was, but somebody was taking like a pesticide sprayer and spraying gasoline on the ceiling and then took the deal outside and then lit it off. So then you have fire rolling down the hallway. Well, we can create that naturally. We don't have to use gasoline.
Exactly.
Right? So I want you to talk real quick about how the process that you have, because it's really unique and there's not a lot of places in the country that are doing this. How do you find, obtain, prepare, and use acquired structures in your area? Because that's really unique and not a lot of people are doing it.
Absolutely. So I start backwards, and especially what's it going to look like if we don't do anything? And in our city, it's been around since 1865, which I know may be old some places, not old some places. So the routine structures we get our fires in, period, are anywhere from 75 to 105 years old. Very little new construction that we're fighting fires in. So going around finding these houses, the hardest part is finding the property owner, a family member or something like that actually owns the property. That's one of our deciding lines. You have to own it. You just can't give it to us because you hate the neighbor or hate seeing it. You own the property. We approach you. We're very fortunate that our city has taken it on as a line item. If the structure gets donated to us, and we can do any sort of training in that structure, and when I say any sort, we've done mock tornado. This is what it would look like. I mean, because all it is basically a organized stack, all the way up to, we've gotten almost pristine houses that are being demoed for whatever reason, or no longer occupied, and they want it torn down. And so we'll go through that process. We keep it fairly simple. The majority of them, the insurance is taken care of. There's no liens on it, stuff like that. There may be some property taxes owed, but that's something that the legal end is dealt with away from us. So yeah, we're able to get into a lot of them. And then when I look at a house, honestly, when I drive by and see it, I instantly start thinking, okay, what's the end goal of our training? And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the relationships we've built with our state agencies and other people involved in the process. We look at that end goal of training, and if it's something that we think we can put some live fire in, yeah, we look at it in that form and fashion. And then we scale backwards to the beginning of where our people are in our system and what training they need. And then, I'm extraordinarily fortunate to have so many friends around the nation, and up into Canada. Actually, in Paris, France, there's a guy who's come and burned with us for a couple of days. And when they reach out, hey, we're looking for something specific we would like to see. Let us know if you get something in that realm. Uh, a buddy of mine from Seattle would love 2 stories and love basements. Texas, we got a lot of 2 stories. We're not necessarily known for our basements. Tornado shelters maybe, but not necessarily basements. So constantly on the lookout for a basement for him. But yeah, that's some of the process we go through.
Yeah, and it's it's funny because when you and I first met, and this is something that you and I talked about at kind of a great length, because I'm not gonna lie, man. Like I met you and I had heard about you, and I kind of knew that like that's where a lot of people had gone to do live fire stuff. And so the first time that you and I were talking, I was like, so what's the process? Like, let's say that I wanted to come down as Dave Mellon with Valor Fire Training, and we got a couple instructors, and like, if we want to come down and burn some stuff, like, what's the process that we have to go to? And you're like, well, yeah, just tell me what weekend you're coming down. And I'm
Yep.
like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, but like, do you have houses available? You're like, dude, I got a whole city block. You want to burn the whole thing? And I'm like, wait, what? And so that's how our relationship kind of started. But if you look at, the ability, and I think it goes back to the realistic training side of things. When I started in the fire service up in Nebraska, they did a ton of acquired structures. There are still places in this country like yours where they do a ton of acquired structures. And so it does give you the ability to replicate things that you can't do in a burn facility.
Yep.
And there are things that you can do in a burn facility that you can't do in an acquired structure. So which one do you think is, and I know this is kind of a double-edged sword, but I mean, which one do you think is more beneficial for initial education versus continuing to keep up your skills?
Wow. And I've got it, I'm obviously got more time in acquired, but I do have a lot of amount of time in fixed facility also. To me, we have lost, due to a number of reasons, our gear, and the way we're able to be encapsulated, the way we're using technology, we have lost, to me, the tactile end of what we do. And even if you throw fire at the end of it, in a Class B or a Class A fixed facility, they're not getting that. They're not getting that. I can't show them. I've yet to see, and maybe it's out there, I've yet to see a fixed facility that has soffits pushing smoke.
Right.
And that gable and on that walk around, on that drive up, a good 3-side driver gives you, and I'm able to shout to the guy in the jump seat, hey, this, and this. We saunter over to a fixed facility. We chew the fat for a few minutes. Oh, hey, on it, engine 3, it's your turn up next. And and there's the few places out there, and you and I've been to a couple of them. Man, they're hitting it on the screws. From the time you enter their drill field, it's the real deal.
Right.
And they're stressing it, and they're adding in that, and I don't want to, stress is the wrong word. They're emphasizing realism from the get-go. That way, when you hit that doorway or the mock-up, or there is somebody in their underwear standing there screaming out of the second floor.
Why does everybody keep bringing that up, man?
It
Like,
was
I'm not the
awesome.
only one that gets naked.
I know. It's uh, your heart rate, you're already focusing on things. And and when you have the ability with an acquired structure, there's a lot of times, I mean, myself or one of my, senior guys that I trust, that'll come up, needs to come up more and more. A lot of guys just burn with people they should never trust.
Right.
I have an extremely focused group of people that at a moment's notice I will call if I need burning and doing things. We're walking around the outside of that structure. One of the things a lot of people will tell you, you have to remove all this stuff from the house, all the glass, all the this. I'm a second generation fireman. My dad put in 38 years fire and EMS, retired. He's been retired. After he retired after 38 years, he taught fire history for another 10 years at Academy. So 48 years total. I was at the side of his command vehicle when he was a battalion aide. I remember the lieutenant on the engine telling the probie, look at the glass. I looked over at the glass, and I can see it right now all these years later. It was that nice stain that had a small crack down it and this and that. And I'm like, when we got back to the station, sir, please make me smarter. And he's like, man, that's a sign of, it's vent limited. It's this, 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 this. I take all the glass out and put shutters on this structure. I've got metal shutters. I'm wondering how many kids, and I love the prop, the little window break prop we keep seeing. That first double and triple pane window, Lexan, I mean, you're falling off that ladder unless you've taken Champo or somebody's class that's told you how to seat yourself in.
Right.
And I'm like, come on, we've got to teach people real stuff using real things and doing it really safe. I mean, there's guys that burn every day that do it safely.
Yeah, and I think that there's multiple layers to that, right? Like, it's kind of like an onion. So if we peel back the outermost layer, right? Nobody wants to get anyone hurt or killed. I think that's like a given, right? But
it should be.
It should be, right? And you are correct. There are some dumbasses out there who will do things that are completely out of whack and are super outside the realm.
One of those things, and I would love to tell you it's a million times a year. About 10 times a year, I'll have a chief or somebody call me, hey, can you show them some heat? And I tell them up front, no.
Yeah.
The way the gear's made, the way everything, unless they're just wearing the hoods, they're wearing the gear my dad started with in the early 70s. Oh, yeah. You walk through the doorway of a normal combustion house these days, yeah, you're getting pushed right back out. No. I mean, and if we do get it to where they feel the heat, we're so past that curve. We've talked about it before. I'm starting to ramble. Everybody that's watching, I'm starting to ramble.
So Dave's a rambler, just so everybody knows. I have a private chat up, and I'll give him 30-second warnings. But no, I mean, you bring up a really good point, because there are people who their idea, their concept of acquired structures is we can get it ripping hot, fire blowing out the window, fire rolling over their heads, and we're going to make them suffer in order to prove themselves. Well, that's not what it's about, right?
Exactly.
Like, having an acquired structure is about being able to have different layouts with different building construction, with different materials, and you can see how those things are going to interact, right? And
Absolutely.
so, yes, I am a firm believer that burning inside of a fixed structure with the, burn panels, the ceramic burn panels, that's great for a certain purpose, but that doesn't work for everything. So when you go, and you touched on it, you said that you will tell those chiefs no. So what is your follow-up answer? What do you explain to them?
I explain to them that that's something I consider that's disorientation and discomfort. And I think that's what a lot of instructors, a lot of big training facilities, that's what they're reinforcing, is disorientation and discomfort. They can turn the lights off at any moment, and you're uncomfortable and disoriented inside the skin you're in. And all they're doing is affecting your senses, and you're not learning things. And multiple of y'all, Fields, Robbie Ramirez, we know what it's like when we go lizard brain.
Right.
And we seem to have this fascination with just dumping people into that. And in all honesty, you could do that in your bay floor and not have to build a multi-million-dollar fixed facility, and have the Traeger going. I mean,
Yeah.
when my young guys cook a brisket or whatever, there's more smoke in the bay than I've ever seen in fixed facilities. And be able to do those things. Now, and I'm not dogging fixed facility. If they told me I was getting one tomorrow, I would attempt a backflip and probably look like Kevin Hart in that movie and land flat on my face. If I needed to stop something, and that's the differences. If I'm teaching and instructing and needing to stop things to fine tune movements, which floors me, and which we were talking about, that we can't have furniture, we can't have this, can't have that. Man, there's a chance that you're going to get hurt. There's a chance that unfortunately you might die in a fixed facility, but man, it's so small. Man, put those things in there so you get those real pinch points. You get that stuff. You drug the recliner to the pinch point, and your heel man's got to go back and get it. Whatever that may be, I can start and stop those things because I just push the button, the fire's off. I close a door in a Class A, and it's over there. Everything's getting better. That living structure, and this is my vocabulary, I get to educate. To me, educating is shaping portions of your mind and putting in there sensory moments that, hey, did you feel that? Did you feel this? And I'm sitting there, and I'll name drop. I'm sitting there in a hallway with Aaron Fields, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, man, I keep one of my gloves. I don't put my gauntlet on all the way. I can lift up, and I can get a real quick sense of where I'm at. And I'm like, damn it. Okay, hey, my glove's this. I'm not this. You get those moments because it's real, it's visceral. It's not the fact that it's the 10th burn of a day and the HADOT blocks or the panels or whatever they're doing. Or, as we were discussing, bingo, it's 350, 450, whatever the thermocouple is setting. Sorry, kids, today all you're doing is getting hot and sweaty.
Yeah, the buzzer goes off and the fan kicks on.
Yeah, and unless you're laying on the roof next to that fan, you're not feeling any of that. I don't. We talk continuously about training scars. Man, what are we doing generations from now that these guys, when they see when America starts burning again, because we're now a throwaway culture, what do we do?
Yeah.
And
and you bring up a really good point, and I think the NFPA 1403 standard has morphed into a lot of things, right? Like it has had a lot of different layers. And I think, again, there are some things in the NFPA standards that are, I don't want to say suspect. There are things that we don't necessarily agree with that are in the NFPA standards outside of 1403, right? I'm not talking about live fire. I'm just saying, like one of the hot topic items right now is the PFAs.
Yep.
And they just shot it down. So how much do they really care about our health and safety if that's something that's really going on? But in the 1403 standard, a lot of the stuff that has been put into the standard is because somebody got hurt or killed. And out of that, every time they come up with a new one, a lot of it is somebody will find a new way to bastardize the policy. To sit there and say, well, we can't do this, and it's so we absolutely can't do anything until we get asbestos abatement, and we remove 75% of the shingles, and you get a 10 by 10 square of the shingles. And I remember there was one time we were doing a live acquired structure burn here in Kansas, and I called KDHE, the Kansas Department of Health and Environmental Services, and I said, man, listen, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I said, this house is newer. Right. I can't promise you that it doesn't have asbestos in it, but at the end of the day, we're not burning this thing to the ground. And the guy that I talked to was like, well, if you're not burning it, you don't have to do any of that. And I go,
absolutely.
I said, wait a minute. I said, we are burning in it. We're just not letting it burn into the basement. And he goes, right. If you're not letting it burn to the ground, you don't have to do any of that. If you're just burning inside the container, you're fine. You can do it. And I was like, really? And that was, 10, 12 years ago. But what are the biggest myths that you routinely are up against, and the things that you think people need to know aren't real?
So the absolute biggest one I come across all the time is it's against the law. And that there's some, phantom, I guess that's what Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones are doing now. Men in Black 4 is going to be them coming and arresting, fire service instructors.
Right.
It is not against the law, period. Almost all 50 states have an outdoor burning policy. It is usually, exactly like you were saying, it's controlled generally through your environmental quality people. In Texas, they're called the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. I kicked the whole TV there for a second. It was bound to happen once. When you look at those things, those outside burn regulations, almost every one of them has a provision that clearly states, paraphrasing, hey, y'all are supposed to be professionals. We're going to cut you some break on these rules. Joe Schmo cooking off 10 tires in his backyard in the middle of your city, yeah, obviously we want to regulate that and not have that happen. Right. And that's why those ordinances are in place. But yeah, I had a guy the other day, I put something on Engine Company Resurrection, had a guy, his opening move, it's illegal. I'm like, where are you at? And he's like, Texas. I'm like, give me a call. I'm like, who told you? Who told you it was illegal? And then we just start playing this mythical, well, we went to see the wizard once, and he said you couldn't ever do it. I'm like, when did this even happen?
Right.
The only one I've ever heard that is even remotely good, and I cannot find the fire, was like New Jersey had a horrific injury, and I think it was even a firefighter fatality, and they just kind of said, hey, you know what? Thanks for playing. We probably shouldn't be doing this. And it was in the 80s. So that one's the biggest. Guys out there, it is not against the law. There are standards that govern it. In Texas, we have what's called the Texas Administrative Code. If it is in there, that is law and statute in the state. They would love for you to follow that stuff. And it references NFPA standards and references our Commission on Fire Protection and those types of things. It references that they would love for you to be trained, and stuff like that. They understand, we're the same percentage as anywhere as far as volunteers, and we're lucky in the state of Texas. We haven't required it yet, but the majority of our volunteer departments go through we have Commission on Fire Protection and the state firemen and fire marshals. Those two curriculums mirror each other. So we're on a goal to have, people trained throughout the state. Firefighter 1, 2, hazmat ops, runners, stuff like that. The other one is exactly what you hit on. Well, I don't have the time to take apart this entire house. And I'm horrible at names. He taught at FDIC for years and did the acquired structure training there. He's the Babe Ruth. I mean, if anybody calling me Babe Ruth, that guy's Satchel Paige or, those guys, Brett Favre, and it was a 2-day class, from what I was told. I unfortunately never got to take it. 2-day class, and he would take apart the whole house. They would put it all back together with all these, approved stuff and components, and then they would do live fire. And from what I understand, they cut it because, obviously 2-day class, they're losing out on people being able to do whatever deliveries. I get it. Same as you, Dave. I started out cutting out massive pieces. I'd call the truckies and, hey, go cut this roof off for me. Yeah. Why are we doing this, Dave? Well, if it's down to this percentage. And I started looking at it. Well, you know what? I'm making this percentage up because my captains, hey, that's the only way you're going to get to burn.
Right.
I did the same thing. Hey, what if I just don't burn these shingles? That's way easier.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how would you not do that? I'm like, it's a room and contents fire.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but we're firefighters and we can put the fire out.
Exactly. And, we haven't even drifted into the whole saga of what you probably could and should be training on.
Right.
If you're showing up, and most of us are, we're showing up to well-involved rooms, emptying out of a room. We try to reinforce transitional attacks where need be. And you and I have discussed transition and my use of that. Yes, if you don't know how to move the hose from a window to a door, please don't set anything on fire. You need to go to your house, your station, your buddy's house, whatever, and just practice moving left and right, up and down, front and back. Don't set anything on fire. You're going to be hot, miserable, fight, all those things. You can transition inside. People tell me I come across sarcastic. Please stop me if I do that. Send me a little message if I become that way.
I'm not going to stop you. I think everybody else would love it.
I don't know about y'all. I love dry stretching. You know, if you can clearly identify where the fire is, where it's at, this, that, and the other, man, it is way easier to negotiate some hazards to the middle of some place. You know, middle of a living room, fire, you know, floor below the fire, whatever you're doing, dry stretch to it. I have masked up inside the house that's on fire. Why? Because it's 3 rooms down the hallway that way. You know, I can see, smell, hear all those things before I start taking and affecting those senses. Uh, you know, those types of things. I'm transitioning from the inside. I'm here to tell you, now we don't do it a whole lot in my district because we're heavy plank and shiplap.
Right.
That fire's good and compartmentalized in that room. We've got good door closure. Why don't I just break a hole in the wall?
Yeah.
Shove that nozzle in there, give it a couple of good sweeps, and then make my way to the door. You know, why get baked going down? I mean, there's a million ways to transition. We've talked about some of them.
Sure.
You know, so people have that myth. They have to tear it apart. The wiring. Well, how about I just don't burn through this wall?
Right.
I'm going to do 4, 5, 7 evolutions, hay pallet. The fire should never degrade the components to that point to where there's exposed wiring. And if there is, I have a stack of sheetrock, a stack of barn tin, a stack of whatever. How about while we're overhauling, how about, here's a crazy one, how about as we're resetting the fire because we told them to put it out? Makes it better for everybody, especially the guys stoking the fire. And if anybody understand that, if you've never stoked a hay fire, come on down. We'll punch you in the head repeatedly, and you'll be hot as I'll get out.
It is not fun.
And the majority of that is because, honestly, if think about it in the fixed facilities, we tell them not to put it out. We are trapping so much heat in there.
Yeah.
Man, I'd rather just start over and have it do its thing.
Right.
And knowing that fire's fully out, sweep it to the side, do whatever. Use your Excelsior hay so it burns up better, whatever you're doing. And then reset and have them have a good solid burn. And that's a good break. But that's another myth. You know, pulling up carpet and flooring and stuff like that. Outside of flashovers or fully developed rooms, I mean, I'm raising my hand. Those are the only times I've seen flooring involved, unless it was underneath the house to begin with.
Well, and I think you know, when you talk about the myth of, you know, you have to dismantle the house before you can burn it down, right?
Yep.
There are certain applications that you have to, right? But
yeah,
again, I go back to, if we're training inside of that structure, right? One of the ones that just chaps my ass, man. It really frustrates me when we go teach classes, and people will sit there and say, "Well, we can't put anything inside of the building. There can be 0 furniture, 0 obstacles, 0 obstructions." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, where does it say that?" And they're like, "Well, you can't have anything that's combustible inside of the burn room or, you know, in an adjacent area." And I'm like, "Okay, I understand that. I'm not going to put 4 couches in a hallway outside of the burn room."
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense, and that would be completely unrealistic. But if we're burning in this and I have, you know, metal furniture or obstructions that are not easily combustible, why is that such a big deal? And so when you go to places, and I will say this, like, I've been to FDTN, I've been to several other facilities around the country that have, hoarder condition setups.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, you're crawling over bicycles, metal chairs, metal tables, all sorts of stuff that creates obstacles in order to get to where the fire is. And they do it in a coordinated, safe manner.
Yep.
And to my knowledge, no one has ever died doing that type of scenario. And so that goes back to that fear mongering. And I just don't get it, man. It's just, we went to, I will say this, we went to a fire conference. We were doing search under live fire. And I think you and I talked about this. We went to do search under live fire. And during that scenario, we had metal furniture that we were setting up to create realistic areas to be searched. We weren't using live victims. We weren't using combustible furniture. We were using non-combustible stuff. And their training, the training facility staff lost their minds. They flat out walked out and they're like, "We're shutting you down right now."
Wow.
And I was like, "Okay, why?" Like, I'm sitting there thinking, what do we do? And the chief of training came up and they were like, "No, this is completely unsafe. This is going to get somebody killed." And I said, "Okay." I said, I think we're not on the same page. So let's discuss this, right? And luckily, I was able to kind of get through to them. And once we talked about it, I said, listen, you send an instructor with us from your training staff into the building, and we will run one scenario. And if you see anything that you don't like, you can shut us down. We'll pack our stuff up and we'll leave. And I was a little bit more animated about it than that. But what ended up happening is they literally they had like 3 or 4 training staff members in the building, and they're like, dude, this is awesome. Oh my God. I mean, we had fire rolling down the hallway. People are searching rooms under the fire, and then there's a hose line team coming in behind them. And so again, it's that fear of we're going to get somebody killed, because I think that's what everybody talks about.
Well, and I think that fear should be there. And you and I've discussed, I mean, the angst I have going into things, thinking them through and playing through all these scenarios, that fear and that respect, we've got to respect this. And I think one of the things that establishes that fear mongering is the jack wagons. And I've probably been guilty of this myself in a number of areas. It's got to be so incredibly hard, or we're not making it. I mean, and they do this crazy stuff. And like you say, it's this hellacious fire, or it's all the hoarder conditions from all get out, and and you got some guy who's, whatever degree of experience they are, and to, quote Aaron again, it's one of those things. It's not professional.
Yeah.
In no way, shape, or form. It's bad enough that the other professional organizations out there, they're not building houses to help us out. They're sure as heck not building any of the things they're putting in the houses to help us out. When we do cut through a wall and get anything going, it's take your pick. What's behind it? Is it the new spray-in insulation? Is it this? Is it a void space? Is
right.
it, are we falling into some emptiness, the abyss? Make things realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of us. That's all we're asking. Exactly like you said. And have something out there. We haven't discussed it yet. ISFSI, so proud to have been a member and be a member over the years, to have taken. I took both the fixed and the acquired structure through them. Those guys are aces. I call several of them several times a year and say, hey, wow, I'm up against this, because I'll forget a reference to something. And those guys eat and drink it all day.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. And it's floating over here. The thought, because I saw the minute thing. But we get those things. Like one of the things, make sure instructors are trained.
Yeah.
And that's, we could spend the rest of our life talking about kids, raising kids. We all industry-wide lost that 10 to 15-year guy that should have been that senior guy right now, saying, come here. There should be absolutely nothing wrong, especially in a fixed facility, me setting a small love seat or recliner offset of the room so that guy can learn what that bank down feels like. Or you know what? Let's just sit here and watch this off gas.
Right.
Oh, my God. What happens when that gets in your gear? Well, you know what? Hate to break it to you. It's probably a little bit better than what we were talking about the PFAs.
Yeah.
But then that sticks in that kid's memory as he's making a push into that room.
Yeah.
Oh shit, this whole room's off gassing because
Sure.
Dave and Dave took the time to show me this. Man, I better open up. I don't feel heat because I'm encapsulated, but I see the products of combustion happening around me. Man, I need to open up now.
Yeah.
Or call for vent or whatever to rectify.
And and we got a couple questions. I want to get to those,
Awesome,
but one thing that I wanted to say is that I had an instructor, and I won't use his name because now like in today's fire service, this is like horrible. But at the time, it was like, man, that actually makes sense. We did an acquired structure, and what he ended up doing was furnishing one room, left the carpet intact. They would pull the carpet and some of the other stuff just because most of it was shag at that time. But it was a lot of setup, and he had that room set up just like a real room. And we stood out in the hallway and we watched that thing. And he was sitting there showing us like, hey, when it gets to this point and it's off gassing like this, and he takes his hands and kind of puts them on the carpet. And when he pulled them up, they were stuck.
Absolutely.
And he's like, when you feel that, when you start feeling that carpet start getting mushy and sticking to you, that's what's happening. You need to ingrain that in your head. And so we got to see those things, which was amazing, right?
100%.
It was stuff that you would never get to see.
And especially those of y'all have basements and stuff like that. I mean, if you don't recognize where that's at, you can't create that laminar flow, sucking, pulling. You know, if you spend the time to get educated, and that's one of the things back to fixed facilities. I love it because the guys who know how to work, especially the Class A fixed, and they can draw the fire and open windows and close things because the building's not integrated. I love that kind of stuff. It's good. They get to feel some stuff, see some stuff, it moving. But it is so valuable. I am huge on, I was listening to Sean and Edwards and all them last night on the podcast he was on, and they actually made a statement, and they can come down to Texas, kick my ass if they want. Fires are down. No, they're not. They're only down if you don't consider every trip to the store, every medical. I go on hundreds and hundreds of fires a year because every time I go in on that medical for Mrs. Smith, the normal diabetic lady we run, the normal whatever,
Right.
What is this house like on fire? The same place that it's wonky putting the stretcher in and we have to consolidate it and do whatever the hell the stretcher is going to do. You know what? That's probably going to be the same pinch point for me that my heel man's not going to be able to make it around. I probably should think about that. Everybody, the same doorway that's open because she doesn't want to do it, 1,000 dresses are on the front of it. It's going to be open that night. I need to make sure I get it. It's not a snowball's chance in hell I'm VES in that door or isolating the door. I need to do an offhand closet pull or a bathroom pull on my way down and seal that off.
Right.
If you're not going to 100 fires a year, that's on you.
Yeah.
And the same with the flooring. That's what I was going to say. Transitioning between laminate to carpet to linoleum to tile. If that doesn't spring that you're in rooms, very few victims are in tile,
Right.
unless it's you're out
unless you're
west
really
or
lucky.
something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're making way more than I'm making. And,
Yeah.
But anyway, I know I'm rambling again.
No, you're fine. So we got a couple questions. So Blaine Redwine said, loving the show. Is there any way that I can watch or listen to it after the live part has ended? Y'all are bringing up some great points, and I'd love to share with my department. So the answer is yes. You can hit us up on YouTube or Facebook, and if you click on our Facebook page, you can actually go back and watch it again. Or if you go to your YouTube channel, as soon as we end the show, it actually posts it live, and you can go back and watch it and share it. We'd love to have you share it with your department. Jake Dodge said, I've been drinking hot sauce for 15 minutes. When are you two starting? Bro, listen, man. I had to take a break. My colon hated me for like a month after I did 3 shows in, 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know how you did it.
I don't know how I did it either, but I had to. I was getting ulcers, so I had to hold off for a minute. Shane Bentley said, seems we should explain the definition of transition to make sure people understand you might actually have to transition your attack if things don't go the way your initial plan of attack was planned. And that's a great point. I mean, I think that people get so stuck into, I'm just going to hit it from here, and when that doesn't work, or it does work, there's that moment of like, oh, what do I do now? Oh, I actually have to go inside?
Exactly. Well, and Shane, both of y'all, Jake is beyond great. He's up in Nassau, New Hampshire. Man, they're doing so many incredible things up there for the fire service. He came down and spent a week with me with the Nozzle Forward program. They came down and did a series of burns. Top notch. Not a better fireman out there. And then Shane, obviously, I'm still fan gushing because you told me to. I'm trying not to cuss because my mom's going to watch this and the other, but you said something very polite to me in Oklahoma City. It was my past advice going off. I have not let it go off again. No excuse for it. It was me. Transition. Back to different types of training. So many guys, and I think it's because it was beaten to their head, we do this start-stop training. And we especially do this scared training. And I'm sure I did this. I'm no phenomenal instructor. I am not. But what I learned early on was there is so much power in completion. Whether the result is right, wrong, bad, good, 0%, 100%, let them complete the task and then come back. We got so many instructors that will just stop. Hang on, you didn't pull the hose right. Start over. Hang on this. Start over. And we especially fixed facilities. I'm sorry, that's the worst part of a fixed facility. is the fire's not out. You know, if I'm the only one, great, out there, that we get to the fun part of the fire. You know, the other 2 hours where we're breaking open walls, doing truck work, picking up 4-inch, all this other stuff, 5-inch if that's what you got. And I've had several young guys and gals in fire academy. That's usually where we get when we got a drink. I'm like, well, go get a drink real quick and come back over. We got to pull 3 rooms worth of ceiling,
Right.
check for extension. And so, yeah, but so transition, we have so many people that, and this one thing Sean and a couple of guys say, straight to the front door. If that doesn't work, we're burning the whole place down. You know, and which is another thing that blows my mind about 1403. You can only have this. Man, unless if the floor will hold it, put as many firefighters in there as it takes to put it out.
Right.
Get them all a hook, get them all a hose. I got enough watchers most days, not enough workers. So that transition for me, and Shane, you hit it on the head. It's an evolving state. You are constantly transitioning through states of attack. I don't like the word retreat. I have attacked backwards. You know, a tactical withdrawal, if you will.
Sure.
And I've done it from inside. I've done it from floor to floor. Heck, I transitioned when you and I were up in Nebraska together. Hey, you know what? It's sustained hot. I've reached my thermal balance. I'm going to transition from out here to here. Let me know when I need to go back inside.
That is not what you said on the radio. That is not
probably
at all.
not. And
but your point, and I just want to drive this home for everybody. Your point is so well given that it's not necessarily about, yes, the NFPA standard says that you can only do this, but that is not what always happens on a fire. And so there are times where we have to be able to show people that you can fit this many people in there and still be effective. Yep. And you have to have some of that controlled chaos in order to show them that this is where you're going to have to communicate with each other. You know, one of the things that you and I are real big on, especially with NFPA 1403, is communication. And I think it is so imperative that, you know, as you and I are talking and when we're doing live fire, it is essential for the crews to be in communication, for the instructors to be in communication, for the instructors to be in communication with the students and vice versa. But we have never, knock on wood, right? Anytime it happened to us up in Nebraska. We ended up having some radio communication issues, and we did an all stop, and we figured out what the issue was within a minute or two, and we were good, and we continued, right? But I think, and I want to kind of traverse back to the 1403 standard. You know, where did we go wrong that they had to make a standard that was so descriptive in some people's mind that restricts us from being able to do a lot of the things that we need to be able to do to make it realistic? I mean, where do you think that it was because people were getting hurt? And I want to hear from the viewers too. I mean, I want to hear what you guys think caused this.
So one of the things in the society, International Society of Fire Service Instructors, they do a great job in the classes. There was a couple of, you know, and I especially apologize to the brothers that lost their lives for not remembering the exact calls. There's guys that have given their lives for training, you know, and that any life loss should be unacceptable to us. And we should strive to find out why. You allow, back to what we were taught, and most of us were taught in candidate school, if you're in command, don't have hands on. You know, and because you lose that focus, you know, and that 30,000 foot view that you really need to have. And when you look at some of these incidents, I really think a couple of things happened. Obviously there was, you know, fire growth or some sort of distractor that they did. You know, one of the landmark ones back in the 80s, I mean, they were burning smudge parts with tires and stuff like that, you know, to darken the smoke and make conditions. The building was superheated throughout the day, and it went sideways. One of the things, and this is one of the things I love about 1403, and especially the society. And yes, guys, I am pushing the society. Spend the money, go to the class. It is fantastic. I'm about to retake the whole class because it's not enough for me just to online recertify my credential. I want to sit through it again and hear and share the experiences. If I was on a fire for an hour, if I was on a fire for 30 minutes, and I'm not doing the critical evaluation changes that need to be happening and doing the perpetual size up. I know each one of y'all, Shane, you're listening, Jake, everybody's, if they're still listening, you hear those departments that give that single size up, if anything, and then they clear an hour, 2 days,
Right.
whatever the time later.
You never hear anything else.
Nothing. And, you know, and I had a guy tell me once in our own county, son, we could all talk to each other. I'm like, well, that's fantastic, because we're coming to you. It would have been nice to know what y'all had going on, you know, even if it's us canceling. So you got to be evaluating what's happening to that building. That's why I like it. You know, for ISFI, when they teach 1403, doing those stops, doing those changes at evolution breaks, having those hard stops to just regroup and refresh. To reevaluate the structure, whether it's a fixed facility or an acquired, especially if it's an acquired. We had one, we came back from lunch, a great friend of mine, his department had come up and burned, and we sit there and he's like, is the house leaning? I'm like, I believe it is. And we went in and started looking and we're like, well, we should not be in this anymore. Right. And it had happened at lunch, and we went back and looked at some pictures and stuff. And at lunch, it had taken a noticeable lean. We pulled flaps and called it. And fortunately, we had another structure to go to. We went over there.
You just had like 5 more down the block.
I mean, it's just, you know, there's we could. It's a fair amount. I'll just say that. We're not St. Louis or East St. Louis or, you know, Highland Park, Michigan,
right.
You know, Detroit. But talking about the communication stuff, they trusted, and they should have trusted. I'm not going to say they ever shouldn't have, but you have to dial in those margins of safety so tight and put in those redundancies, like you and I and Logan. As soon as we had a radio issue, okay, it wasn't good enough,
right?
You know, we obviously, hey, did you not hear me? We said it again, whatever. Okay, that second one, we didn't go crazy declaring maydays. Hang on, we've got an issue. Let's go find that issue. In communications, that snake that bites us regularly. If you had a snake in your house, you would find the damn thing. Right. And, you know, depending where you're at, great is a good snake, no such thing, or it's a bad snake. And you got to eradicate those things. I do think, 20 seconds left, the best thing out of there is the go, no go sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many guys that, hey, why are you out here? I thought you were lighting the fire. Oh, I lit the fire. Oh, you know, everybody's out there, burnouts down around their ankles and, you know, and it's rocking along doing its thing.
Absolutely. And that kind of segues us into the next thing that I wanted to talk about. So with the 1403 standard, there are set positions that you have to have, right? Yep. And there are set numbers of people that you have to have. Yes. And so there's two questions that I get a lot, and I want to get your take on it. And we have a couple more questions.
Oh, awesome.
Actually, these are just statements. Shane put it in all caps, so I think he's yelling at me. It says, David said the answer earlier, we were losing the experience. Yes. And he also said, good enough is never good, right? Absolutely. I love that. Good enough is never good.
Absolutely. So, it's never better if it can be, or what is it? It's not good if it can be better, and if it's not better if it can be best.
Absolutely. So the NFPA standard, you know, if we're doing an acquired structure that's a 800-foot, you know, bungalow, and then we have a 4,000 square foot McMansion or a 6,000 square foot McMansion, right? What does the NFPA standard say about how many people we need to have and what we need to have, and how does it differ between those two? Because they're two completely different animals, right?
They are, and I'm going to give some specific numbers, and like I say, I open up the book. I still open up my protocol book. You know, I like finding the answers. The positions, the required positions through 1403 stay roughly the same because they want that number built. You have to have a dedicated safety. You need an incident commander. You need an ignition officer that needs to be separate from those people. You need to have those things, and if nothing else, it gives you that clarity of view. Uh, now 1403, and I'll tell you this, I differ a little bit on some of these. The double IC is what they call it, the incident or instructor in charge. I wish they'd have simply called it something else. All the ad wizards that came up with that name, I wish they'd have called it something else. Don't know what, but have the lead instructor. If my boss shows up, I'm smart enough to know that I'm in charge of the fire. He's in charge of the city and the scene and all this and that. He's my boss. The instructors in charge should be that to me. But having your attack crews and having individuals that are with them that are trained, you need to have those numbers in place. That way you're able to hit those benchmarks when you're going through the things. Can't stress enough the safety lines. Jay Bonifield and Ian Bennett had a fantastic fire they put up on a couple months ago, to where the safety line, they put it into play. They noticed what was happening with the fire development, and it's such a fantastic video that you would not have seen in a fixed facility, unfortunately. But for an acquired, the fire was growing past what one line was going to handle. They put the other line in play, immediately got it in check with gallons per second, and went on about teaching their stuff. Transitioned from back from holy shit to wow, and we're able to keep on teaching good, solid teaching moments. I'm glad you're back on. It freaks me out when I'm by myself. I'm watching
the whole time, man. I just want people to be able to see you.
So I do think there's things, and this is where, if you get so trapped in the rigidness, when I went through fixed facility, we had like one group, we were supposed to do a proposal for our chief or our council or whatever, and they needed like 27 people to do this burn. And we're like, holy crap. We looked over, we rotated, hard stop. Everybody went and refilled their tanks, got a hot dog, whatever they're doing, and then we started fresh. And we used like 7 people.
Right.
And then we had specific benchmarks, and you got to be. What floors me to this day is that we do something so brilliantly in this profession, and then what we should be. I mean, outside of our job performance, don't get me wrong. We should hit that on the screws every time the truck goes in the park. Instruction should be what we do absolutely the best.
Yeah.
We have the greatest job in the world. When it comes time next month for pub eds, I can't talk about this job. Dude, I hear you talking to every girl at the supermarket about it. You can't talk to a sea of third graders about Stop, Drop, and Roll and Edith and all this other stuff.
Right.
I can't tell. All these dudes on Facebook have no problem saying how big they are. Really? Hey, we need to go down to the nursing home and we're going to go over, whatever safety issue. You're better at that. Me no word. Come on. We should be able to instruct with the best of them, because we're the ones seeing these things. We're the ones studying these things.
Right.
And, so with that being said, who you're putting with the guys,
right.
Are you whipping the same mule every time? Get people in there.
And I think too that, when you talk about the positions that are required, right? I mean, we have to have backup lines, we have to have ignition officers, we have to have safeties, we have to have, it depends on the size of the structure.
Yes.
But I have seen so many organizations where they don't have the personnel on the department to maintain that. Like, you go to a bigger department or a place where it's very densely populated, and they can handle 21 positions for a structure plus students. Then you go other places where you only have 21 students to begin with. So
absolutely.
It makes it really difficult. And I find that what a lot of people fail to realize, and I think what you do really well, is with the NFPA standard, there are a lot of departments that have checklists. And if you're going to do an NFPA 1403 acquired structure, you have a checklist that you have to go down, right? And it's, did you verify the owner of the structure? Well, you already touched on this, right? Like, and there are stories of people burning down the wrong house.
Absolutely.
And that's bad, right? We can all agree that that's bad. But then once you start picking away at those positions, you can actually sit there and set it up to where we have reached out to, 2 counties away and said, anybody that wants to come do live fire, come to us and we're going to do an acquired structure burn. And we ended up with the amount of people that we needed that was appropriate for the structure. But like you said, it was very dependent on, we're not going to have the same person teaching the same evolution over and over and over and over again. You almost have to double up. You almost have to have the people to be able to cycle through.
And you need to be able to do that. You've got to have a peer group, and our department size, we're a DPS agency. So I have, guys that wear multiple hats, guys and gals, but at the core of our firefighting ability, we're less than 30 people total. I reach out to people. One of the great ones, and I didn't ask any of them. I could say their names. I know they won't mind. But I reach out to these guys when I have. See if I can say this the right way. If you don't know what you're about to be doing, there's not enough people to help you.
Right.
And I had a buddy of mine who was so eat up with 2 in, 2 out when that was coming out and we were getting bashed in the head. Oh my gosh. He's like, and I told him, I said, if you're going to change your decision, if it's just me and you, as opposed to if there's 100 people, that's the problem. Your decision-making ability. If I show up by myself in my Tahoe and there's somebody inside, or I think it's an incipient phase fire, I'm going to work. If there's 100 guys behind me coming, great. Pick up some line, pick up a hook, let's go. We confuse these things, and I think that goes back to a lot of the guys teaching modalities. They let it get out of the box. It's got to be this huge. I tell people right now, I'm working on a thing. A group's coming down to burn with me in a couple of weeks, and we've talked about things and talked about VES. I love VES.
I love how cryptic you are. You're like, there's a certain set of individuals who are going to be lighting fires.
VES. For my stove to be on fire, and it makes it the 20, 30 feet from the kitchen to my son's bedroom, that is so much fire.
Right.
How about I build a prop, build a box, put the fire next to the door, you and your crew come VES it, oh my God, there's fire right there. I've got 3 feet of fire that's 6 feet tall, 8 feet tall, as opposed to 30 feet of fire that's 8 feet tall.
Sure.
To teach the exact same objective and reinforce it.
Well, and it's no different than doing the garage door prop where, you either have a garage door that's, 4 feet deep and it's full of fire, or we've done it before. And I don't know if you were up there for that. We've built a false wall behind a garage door in an acquired structure.
Awesome.
And that was the fake wall where we just had that contained fire. So you don't have a whole garage of fire, but visually that's what you're seeing.
Absolutely.
So,
I think Shane popped something up again. Probably telling me to stop rambling.
He said the only 3 reasons why you should not attend live fire training: spouse, children, or funeral. Some would take out the first 2. I mean, I
was going to say, if I was smarter, I would know how to make money doing this. That's what my wife keeps telling me. And we've not even joking. Every time I see a vacant structure, honestly, I think 2 things. One, how can we rehab that structure?
Yeah.
Because some of these houses, especially in my district, they're 80, 90 years old. I mean, the wood, the stuff, they're simply past that rehab state. We had a young lady, the company literally told her $40,000 to $50,000 to fix it up to maybe turn around and sell it for $35,000 to $40,000. Okay, wow. I mean, and she's beside herself, and we came in and we helped her out. We removed the structure completely for her. We were able to burn in it, did some stuff, some neat things. and they're going to rebuild on it. Fantastic. When I see those structures, that's what I think of first. How can we get somebody moved into that? Because a vacant lot does me no good,
Right.
unless they're building on it. And then I go straight to the next thing. Man, how can I get this structure and do any sort of training? Whether, and we've talked about all the stuff. There's a million reasons you should train that don't involve any fire at all. And yeah, and it's my family is wildly supportive. My boys have actually come to some things. One of them we hadn't even talked about all the reasons you need to be looking for if you're trying to sell acquired structure training to your district. We started out doing the annual county school. We do 1 or 2 a year, and we started doing. I call people. Hydrovent, the guys out of Chicago area. It's something great for limited personnel. It does a great job. One of our vendors, hey man, do you mind setting something on fire so we can show people this actually working other than the video? And I'm like, come on down. That's how I met Aaron Fields.
Yeah.
Took his class. And I said, hey, do you get to do anything in acquireds? He's like, not a whole lot. I was like, how about, I think the first couple of days they did 4. We ended up doing, I think, 78. And Jake may remember all this. I think we did 8 houses, 8 burns each, 8 legitimate house fires. These were not room and content fires.
Right.
And I don't say any of that bragging. I am so lucky that these guys have come down, and one helped our city be better. And if they're listening, we've had more houses built in the last 2 years due to these vacant lots, due to these structures increasing our property values, more houses in the last 2 years than we've had in the last 30 to 40 to be built. And that's directly attributed to these guys wanting to perfect their craft.
So essentially what you're saying is it's like when you cut down a tree and you plant a new one, right? I think that's what you're doing in Hillsborough is you burn a house down and then you build another one. So in 100 years, you have another house to burn down.
I'm hoping 100 years. The constructions, I like the construction. I'm over there. I'm watching how they're building them.
So there's got to be a story behind this. Joshua Perry said plus 1 extra fire at 2 a.m. And I've heard the story. Do you want to share? Because that actually brings up another question or another topic. And I want to say this. Safety-wise, right? We've done a couple acquired structures that we left and, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're getting called back out. So why don't you tell your story and how you can prevent that from happening?
Absolutely. So I've done multiple. We're talking. I'm probably past 100. I don't know. Stephanie also tells me I need to be taking pictures and documenting all this. Okay. I have had 3 structures burned down after we left, and all those structures. I've had a handful that the commission says, "Hey, you can take this one all the way to the ground." If I burn it down, training's over, and I love to train. So it's in my best interest to make sure. So the one they're talking about, and what makes this one so crazy is we'd already burned in this one quite a few times. The guy from Paris had come, and we burned. And we did some wicked good burns with him. We had 3M Scott Safety had come and done a series of burns and some wicked good fire. We had done some burns. Aaron and his cadre had come, and some guys, friends of his, and like I say, nothing like it on earth watching these guys work and do their craft. So that was the Monday burn. We did that one, and I had built, and now we could spend a whole other hour how you modify acquired structures. It set itself up to have a staircase put in. And the previous fires we had done, I had intentionally burned portions to where I had roof line exposed, ceiling line exposed. We built a second floor, and so they could do some, do the stuff where they're making their stairwell pushes. Almost 36 to 38 hours later, we're at this. It's the middle of the night. They're right. It was like 2, 3 in the morning. The bells go off. It's this address. Well, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm beside myself, and these guys could tell you. Yes, I'm so invested in my guys. I don't, especially my guys in Hillsboro. I don't want this to be work for them that we were burning and that we're doing things. That I need them to be ready to go to the next call, ready to do things. And so I do my best to not have this be work for them. And the guys and gals that come in from around the nation, around the state, man, they're cleaning hose, washing trucks, doing things, helping my guys cook, do whatever. So anyway, we pull up. This place has got more fire in it after 36 hours. By the way, 36 hours, we completely drenched the place. There's not a stitch of smoke. There's not even a wispy. You can barely even smell smoke when we left 36 hours earlier. This place is from stem to stern on fire from top to bottom. We got about a 40-mile-an-hour south wind, which is not uncommon in Texas. Throwing firebrands, downrange. There's an apartment complex upstream from this, as I'm sending my patrol officers, go look for firebrands, stamp them out. One of the coolest moments of my life, I don't know if about it for these guys, man, I picked the phone up, Aaron Fields. Hey, Aaron, remember that house? He's like, you're kidding me. And I was like, he's like, what do you need? I was like, we need a little help. Bam. 2/3, half of the Nozzle Ford cadre swings by the station, grabs their gear, grabs a couple of more trucks. I can legitimately say I've fought in fire with Aaron Fields and
Right. They were your second due.
Oh, absolutely. Carl Waite, Jake and Josh and all these guys. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting there fangush as I'm crying. And I'll tell them myself, yeah, like I said, this has become work for my guys. And I don't want to put anything on them like that after the fact. We saw some video footage. The building next to it had some footage, some cameras. You do see some headlights that never pass in front of the house. And then you see 2 to 3, 4 start points.
Right.
This is not about an arson class or arson detection for first responders, but kids, that's not generally the way a rekindle works.
Yeah.
How do I say this? One of the few things I'll ever try to say politically correct. We do have some people in my district that love to watch us work, love to help us out. That's honestly one of my larger fears is when they see me pull up in my Tahoe to start looking at a structure. Oh, here's a convenient way to get rid of this. I'm like, please wait, please wait.
Right.
Especially when they see me start doing all the dressing and stuff and removing trees and, cleaning things up to burn. There's been several, we've had to rebuild to burn, and I'm extremely fortunate. If you're not reaching out to your vendors, I hope when we get back up to OKC here in a couple of weeks, they still have those doors.
Yeah.
On the way up there, I called Home Depot. Hey, do you have any that are ruined? They're like, you know what? We happen to have some that are ruined. These manufactured home plants, I mean, they've got trusses and sheetrock and stuff that is returned or slightly damaged. Man, there's all the window props you need. There's the truss props you need. Outside of some nails and torches and stuff like that, man, we haven't bought supplies in years.
Right. And I think people forget that if you're going to do acquired structures, there is going to be some, facilitating of rehab, and we've had this happen before where people went in, police, law enforcement, they go in and do sim rounds and kick holes in walls.
Oh,
and then it's like, well, okay, we got to put something over that to contain it. But, to your point, when you said that, the building caught back on fire, if you're not burning it all the way to the ground, you still have to resecure it, right? Like
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And so when you told me that story, I mean, I had already heard the story and I thought it was hilarious, but when you told me that story, yeah, well, it wasn't okay. Yeah, it wasn't funny for you. It was funny for everybody else. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where that's a very real possibility, right? We had a situation where we had some people that were going into the structure after we burned in it, and somebody may or may not have gotten injured. We don't know. But when we went back in there for a subsequent training, there was blood on the floor. And we're like, nice. Okay, that's not like, I don't know if animals got in here and started like eating each other, but that looks like, somebody got hurt or jacked themselves up. And so it never got reported, but we also didn't secure the structure after we left. And this was, years ago. But yeah, so I think, and we're running, we got about 10 minutes left. So
2 days.
2 days. Yeah, no, we could always do part two.
We do secure with the way our stuff's written for the city, either totally closed back up or totally opened up. That way, my patrol guys, they can just easily sweep it and stuff like that. These days, in all honesty, because it is, I'm scheduled to do a 2-day burn coming up, and I'm going to spend the night out there on the property. We're taking part of our command trailer and that stuff. I'm going to stay out there, and the people that are coming, they're like,
that's cool.
You're kidding, right? And I'm like, no. I said, because if there's even one little piece, and we've structured it out, we're going to do live smoke day one with a little bit of fire. A little bit of fire starts big fires all the time. And so,
yeah, Jake said that we get pallets of building material from local Home Depot.
Absolutely.
And all it costs us is a couple T-shirts and a conversation. I couldn't agree more.
100%. I mean, almost all these places, they're looking to they've got to get rid of this stuff somehow. Or in like I say, the if you simply sound intelligent, what are y'all gonna do? We're gonna burn it down. What? Shirts all sideways, this and the other. Put on your collared shirt, go in there. Man, we have an acquired structure training program. Would y'all like to be a part of it? Wow. We're wanting to be better every day so we can be the best on your worst day. And they get that stuff. And, they see us being jackwagons. They think that's all we are. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. Those businesses, everything, they want to be a part of this stuff. We got one last question. Fantastic.
Yeah. So my question to you is, and I get asked this a lot, and I think you are probably the most capable to answer this. So as a chief,
okay,
what would you tell another chief in an agency? Because we all wish that we could do acquired structures all the time, right?
Absolutely.
And I know that that's not a reality for most. Anybody that's watching this live or is going to watch it after the fact, there is going to be a majority of the people who want to be able to do acquired structures and live fire. So what would you tell a chief who has someone come to them and say, hey, I want to be able to do acquired, I want to be able to do this, and the answer is, it's too dangerous, we're not going to get anybody killed, it's illegal. How would you as a chief, because I don't speak chief, right? And I think anybody that knows me knows that I don't speak chief. So I shouldn't say that. It sounds bad, but I mean,
it's a language, and it's more than anything. It's when I come into the city, I'm looking at everything. It is as important to me how the baseball fields look as to the right-of-ways. We had a major exit close this morning due to construction that reroutes our traffic. I'm thinking about all those things, and then I get to sit down and sigh, a breath of relief. Okay, did the candidate make the coffee correct to my liking? Did this, the normal mundane, great, he missed my trash, my door was locked, whatever, One, I would tell them to one, reach out, make sure to dispel those myths. But if you come up against somebody that's just totally dead set, and giving you those things, ask legitimately, can I find one? I tell more people in a year's time, find the one that you can win. You don't need to have some multi-story, so complex of a scenario. Find the one you can win. And then honestly, how I won, and not I, it's the only time I shouldn't even have said how my city won is we were putting in the groundwork before we ever asked to light the first fire. When you drive past our station, and especially when I was on the line, and my guys, they make runs, they go on calls. Single station, 3 to 4 guys there, 2,500 trips a year with an ALS ambulance. They're going, but they're pulling hose, they're throwing ladders, they're doing the reps and getting that stuff in. They're doing steps 1 through 5. That way, steps 6 through 10 are meaningful. It doesn't matter how much you go to the gym if you're still eating a whole pizza for dinner. You've got to have a consistent lifestyle that's built upon reps and solid training, and then turn that into realistic performances. I mean, and when I say find one you can win, it may be a shed.
Right.
And hey, we're going to successfully do what we said. When our commission years ago, 15 plus years ago, all you want to do is burn it down and call it training. And I went back and I was like, no, we don't. We're not going to burn it down. I'm going to do all this stuff, I'm going to put sprinklers in the attics. We're taking a 2.5 in here to keep it from coming out of this room. What are you burning, by the way? We're putting it in a burn barrel. I mean, our first couple of fires were so small.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
what's that apprehension? I mean, it's the,
exactly.
It's the fear of.
So I would do those things, yeah.
So we did get an actual question from a viewer
awesome.
To follow up. So I do want to hit this real quick. So Joe Massey from Connecticut, I believe.
Awesome.
So I think you and I might be taking a trip to Connecticut here in a little bit based on this. So he said, can you discuss quick water supply considerations for acquired structure burns? We're burning a motel in a month. What would you consider exposures to be calculated into the needed fire flow GPM? We plan to burn 2 adjoining rooms at a time. The ceilings are concrete between the first and second floor. So I just want to touch on this real quick. Water supply is a huge issue in most places, right? So if you have good hydrants, I'm very blessed on the career side. Our regular pressures are like 120 something coming off.
Wow.
But then we get out into the rural areas, and some of the departments that I'm involved with. I mean, you might be lucky if you get 30 residual. So what is your take on this?
Well, and we still have a couple 4-inch clay. You can take on and off the steamer cap with it turned on. Go big. You have to go big. Even at the expense of footprint, if that's bringing in tenders, if that's bringing in stuff. Sorry, coughed up down the trachea. And I will challenge you, especially since you're on a timeline. If I'm bringing in additional water, man, that is, and it's not in 1403. It's referencing some of the incidents. Those are my most important guys. They do not move. They do not, if they can face-to-face trade out, because in those simple breaks and those simple stuff, somebody idles down a truck and somebody you're still in lizard brain mode. You don't hear that difference, especially newer rigs that are all computers. You don't hear that stuff, man. That little bitty difference when you start that sequence and that guy comes back over, and it may not be your first or second evolution, man, I would be dialed in with those guys. But go big. Factor in the entire place on fire, which is an extreme amount of water. I know it is. When I look at water flow amounts for buildings like that, I'm looking at my heavy deluge amounts. And that way, because I have to be able to kill it. And that's something we didn't discuss about, fire flows. And I know guys like Shane and, and Aaron and, all those guys, they deep dive into this stuff. I look at it, shotguns, bricks, sniper rounds, my days of sneaking up on it and just stabbing it.
Sure.
Man, if I can throw 1,000 gallons in on it real quick and knock it, the only other, and thinking in my head, find out your age of that structure. Those concrete pours, you may want to open up a wall or two in an off room, and are they poured single or were they laid in? Because there's simply been, I'm not trying to jinx you, there's simply been tilts and collapses. New York, Chicago, stuff like that get those. Boston, places like that get, because they're building stuff like that. You'll get those pieces settle. And what can happen with those bigger burns is that concrete starts to spall. It exposes those members, and you can get those little lateral shifts, and you definitely don't want floor coming down or wall laying over. But no, I hope there's not an exact number for your water supply. You need to be independently. And on something like that, I would honestly, it says you need 2 independent. That's the minimum.
Right.
I was
just going to say the same thing.
My lines that are flowing water, 2 separate deals. Now, we may have a tie together or something, whatever. I'm not afraid to go 2 or 3 to 4 separate water supplies, because I've got to, back to that transition. It's not that I can't move the line over to here. I need to be able to step out as a lead instructor, immediately point to Dave or Logan or whoever, say, "You're up, go." And then their prearranged stuff, because we didn't even discuss that, the sheer lunacy of, you've been in the house, and Dave heard me say this up there, start acting like you've been here.
Right.
After the first 2 or 3 evolutions, man, we ought to be flying through these buildings and doing this stuff real world. And we've all had it happen. I've done it. Well, let me act like it's my first time. I want the experience of first time. I don't want the experience of first time. I want the experience of 1,000th time.
Yeah.
Man, let's go in there and knock this on its ass. Get back to the chair if we're lucky. Get back to the spouse, family, and avoid the funeral. And so, yeah, go big on that stuff. Have your sectors set up. When we were talking about the number of people needed, if you had all the people in the world, where would you put them? Start there and then scale your way down if you have to.
Right.
When I scale down, every time I have to scale down and take a person out of what 1403 recommends, I put in those hard stops. That way, the burn I've got coming up, I told them, I said, hey, factor in, I said, you get a couple of choices. We're going to need some 15, 30-minute breaks, but the actors they're bringing in, which are all real firefighters, but they're coming in, they're going to be in their gear enough. We need to factor in them getting a break before they have to take a legitimate, true, hard hour-and-a-half rehab to reset.
Right.
Because that's going to, there's schedules. I mean, a couple of y'all know what we're doing, but there's schedules with this event that they would like to keep. Their schedules do not preclude fire safety, and neither should training. That's another whole series. Hey, we only got one day to do it. It may not be worth doing. Plan the event out. Follow me for more helpful tips. Look up demo companies in the yellow pages. Hey, who are you pulling contracts on?
And I think, like with Joe's thing, and I just want to touch on this real quick. You talked about bringing a knife to a gunfight, and I think, I don't know how Joe, without knowing the building or the setup or how they're going to do it, or how many mutual aid companies they're going to have, or how many rigs they're going to have on scene. I think it's safe to say that with a motel, and if they're talking about burning, 2 stories and things like that, that's where we get into being smart about it and saying, okay, listen, guys, we're gonna play this like we normally would, right? If it's one room, I can usually get away with 1 3/4 inches, right? Yep. But in the truest sense of the word, it's a commercial structure. So at a minimum, your backup line should be a 2.5, capable of flowing double of what you're flowing off your 1 3/4 inches, no less than however many GPM you feel like you need based off the fire flow formula. But those are all the pre-stage things that you need to sit down and be able to do. But that's where we've seen, and again, Joe, I mean, I'm sorry, he's probably going to be like, God, I wish I wouldn't ask that question. but there are times where people have done these burns and they just have, 2 or 3 1 3/4 inches coming off of one rig, and they're all laying on the ground, and then shit goes bottom up, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we don't have enough water to put this thing out. So I agree with you. I think that you need to have at least 2 or 3 different water supplies coming in. And I'm a real big proponent for myself. I like to have at least 1,000 gallons for a standard, residential, and maybe 2,000 or 3,000 gallons for a commercial. That's just there, right? We're not going to burn through that. It's just off to the side, and it's there if we need it.
Absolutely dedicated to nothing but extinguishment.
We got more. Yeah, it says we have 2 hydrants off of a large main, mutual aid tanker, and portable draft pond planned. We were actually only burning 1 room. Just going to okay, I got you. Okay, I'm tracking with you.
No, absolutely. And you know what, I like that. I can visualize that.
Absolutely. As I was reading it, it totally made sense. So I would say, and David, tell me if you disagree, I would say, Joe, plan for the worst, right? Like if you have everything set up and it takes you an extra, half hour to get everything set up, plan for the worst and go big. And if you don't need it, you just box it up and take it back with you.
And Joe, this just happens to be your scenario, and I'm lucky in my district, the houses that we get to burn are exactly what we're burning on a regular basis. We are a shiplap. If you don't know what that is, look up Nightmare. Our houses are one gigantic box of heavy plank, 1x12s and 1x8s and the dimensional lumber. But when you look at these structures to burn, are those the fires you're actually burning? And and hopefully, I mean, if y'all don't pass up a great structure, and this one sounds like it could potentially be a great structure for your agency and your surrounding partners. Uh, a lot of people get themselves in a pickle also because they get handed this dream job of a house or a structure, and it's not what they're doing. And that's what, when I go visit friends, telling on myself, 19 years in this district. We've actually, last week we had a sheetrock fire. I've had less than 10 in 19 years. It was sheetrock over 1x4s that were separated by 2 inches. You could no more bury your hook than the man on the moon. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We found a purchase point, got up above it, started knocking it down from the top. So if you're a heavy concrete district, it's going to react the same. Definitely be safe, go big. I know we've got the things on the side. Dave, thank you so much, not only for having me on, but for what you're doing to help change and affect the fire service in such a positive manner. I think, our meeting was not by chance. We met through, it's literally born out of fire. And you and some of the other guys out there that are doing these shows and Q&As, and I thank you for having me on here. But yeah, Joe.
Joe, you need to send us an address, bro.
I'm not afraid. I've got more vacation hours. When I went from 24s to the 8 to 5, I carried so many hours. Man, I'm not afraid to come to Connecticut and mix it up with you, brother. And if it fits in the schedule. But like I say, Dave, you're doing such fantastic work. I love you. Can't wait to see you again in a couple of weeks at wherever we're at.
I love you too, bro. And listen, I want to say this because I always get, I don't know about you guys, I always get uncomfortable, right? Like that makes me uncomfortable when people are like, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'm like, all I did was click a couple buttons and listen to you talk and ask some questions. But no, I mean, I do appreciate that, man. And what I want to make sure everybody understands is that, when you and I met, you're right. It wasn't by circumstance. It was literally like, there's no reason why you and I should have ever met, but we did. And so I think in the fire service, it is such a small world, and there are those of us who want to make it better. And I think for those of us that want to make it better, you will find that you get surrounded all the time by people that are like-minded, that, challenge you, that make you think. And so, a lot of the people that we're watching tonight, and there's so many to name, but guys that will tell us, hey, did you ever think about this? Because what you're saying
absolutely
is kind of right, but why don't you think about it this way? And so you're that guy for me. So I appreciate you thanking me, but I got to thank you. You're the guy that calls me and you're like, dude, bro, no, listen, this is what you need to do. And I'm like, oh God, he's a chief. I got to listen to him.
Yeah, I'm a chief that still gets to fight fires. I'm so thankful I wouldn't have taken this last promotion if it meant not getting to work. Very fortunate. The director of public safety, the confidence he has in us and our team, and you hit it on the head. I mean, you got to surround yourself with people that get it. And that uprising, it's exactly what the revolution. And
that's exactly
we're taking back the fire service.
So how can people get a hold of you? How can people find you?
So, obviously through you. I'm not great at technology. For those of y'all, Dave coached me through this. As my wife's set up, she does all technology all day long for her job. I actually made an email called livefireacquired@gmail.com. I function it on a regular basis. My IT guy is supposed to be helping me put a little shortcut button so I can just click it and go straight to it. And then, come to Texas. You're right. I try to make it to as many of the conferences as I can. I do have to work and do have to stuff. Man, if there's live fire at one, I'm trying to be there. And especially the Dave, other guys out there, Bentley, Edwards, Robbie Ramirez, Jake Johnson, Howard and Kyle are just a little bit south. You know, I'm usually the loudmouth Texan. I'm not gonna lie, so it's kind of
No, I
easy
would
to
have never guessed that.
point out. Most days I'm up against the wall, just soaking it in. I feel a little bit older. Uh, I love watching these guys work and love hearing the conversations and hearing these generations talk about things that are actually important and things that are going to stick past the fluff. Uh, you know, it's fun and it's interesting. So yeah, find me. I generally don't give my phone number out unless you're calling about my insurance or my Medicaid and this, that, and the other. But it is out there. 24/7. You know what? Yeah, I mean 254-266-4605. I'd rather you not call me at 3 in the morning unless it's on fire.
It's a good plan.
But if you've got questions that weren't answered tonight, I mean, there's still so much of this topic that's out there. And stuff that, yeah, give me a call. And if I don't know it, that's where I'm at in life. If I don't know it, man, I'm calling people and finding out.
Absolutely.
And there's so many guys out there. We can get you dialed in with the type of fires you're fighting, and and find those guys in the nation or around the world. Great, here you go.
So there's a real quick. So I have about 5 phone numbers that are saved in my phone that are like strategically placed at the head of the list, because if I'm on a fire and I'm stumped or if I got something going on, those are the people that I'm going to call, right? And I know there was a meme going around with like Ike and I don't remember who the other person was. It was like Ike and Mo Davis, I think.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, I'm on a fire," and they're like, "Hey, I'm on a fire too." And it's like I'm pretty sure at some point in our career we're going to have that similar situation, But no, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being on the show. A couple of housekeeping things real quick. For those of you that did not see this on Facebook, Kyle Romgis is doing a raffle right now for the peer support thing with Dina Ali. Valor Fire Training is doing a 6-foot roof hook. I know a lot of other people. I mean, there's tons of people. There's like 25 prizes. Everybody's doing great stuff. There's tools. There's swag packs. There's shirts. There's conference passes. Ike threw down some stuff. Shane threw in some things, I think. And so absolutely, if you can, please go look up Engine Company Resurrection and just go and donate. I think it's $20 for it's like $20 donation. You send the screenshot to Kyle and then he puts you into the raffle. It's going until Saturday. So if you guys get a chance, you might win a roof hook. I'm going to mail it to you if you win it. So for those of you that are watching, please, if you feel so inclined, go donate. And then reach out to us if you need anything. As I've always said, we get a lot of great interaction during the live stuff, but we usually get a ton of people going and watching this after the fact because they couldn't catch it for one reason or the other. So until the next time we talk, take care, be safe. You guys, we'll see you on the other side. Take care.
Awesome.